Section 14 of The Challenge of Waste by Stuart Chase. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recorded by the Progressing America Project. The Challenge of Waste, Section 14. The Waste of Idleness. We have considered in some detail the waste involved in producing goods and services which do not satisfy any real human want. This is the first major indictment against the efficiency of the prevailing economic system. There are two more. In addition to the production of filth, we find the present system guilty of supporting great numbers of potential producers in idleness on any given working day, and we find that even when workers are busy producing genuine goods, the technical methods which they employ are often prodigally wasteful of raw materials and human effort. During the starvation time in the Virginia colony, Captain John Smith, engineer-in-chief, laid down the rule that only those who work shall eat. Just as it is impossible to conceive, in the long run, of an economic system having any other justification except the satisfaction of human wants, so is it impossible to conceive of any other rule of work except that laid down by the worthy captain. If we live in society and take the 1,001 things which others have made for us, it is axiomatic that we should give society something in return. Even defenders of the present order dare not run counter in doctrine to this fundamental and instinctive concept of justice, no matter how much they may run counter to it in fact. Thus an elaborate mythology has been constructed, covering the compensating services of the leisure class, the invaluable quid pro quo, which they render society by saving and abstinence, by denial and mortification. Behind the cover of this carefully nurtured doctrine, the idle rich can pursue their pleasures with the utmost moral satisfaction. The theory of waste must be based flatly on the assumption that all able-bodied adults who live in society must give some equivalent for what they take, this equivalent not to consist solely in moral doctrine. Libraries of books could be written, and unending arguments could be spun as to what constitutes an equivalent. Is it measurable in hours, pounds lifted, hedonistic units, or the net precipitation of sweat glands? Obviously, all attempts to make a nice balance between debits and credits in these premises can only result in a good deal of nonsense. We have to fall back on the pragmatic test. Is a given individual able-bodied? Is he a potential worker or a genuine dependent? If the former, is he doing something which contributes to the wants of man as we have stated them? Is he making this contribution according to the best of his ability and on the basis of a reasonable amount of time expended? From this standpoint, it is possible to analyze the performance of any individual the country over and to determine whether or not he is rendering back to society a reasonable equivalent. Footnote: I have repeatedly tested my own performance and that of many of my friends with this standard. Here in the United States are 107 millions of people, men, women, and children. They are all consumers. About 30 million men, 10 million women, and 2 million children are working to try to get a chance to work. They are called producers, but, as we have seen, in the case of many millions of them, the term is ironic because of the filth into which their effort goes. Another 18 million women are working hard and all the time, apparently unaware of 8-hour law provisions, in their homes. The balance of the population, say 47 millions, is made up of dependents, children, old people, sick people, defectives, hobos, and the idle rich. It is clear that each of the 42 million producers has at least one dependent person to support beside himself, 1 1/2 to be exact. With this load of dependents always upon his back, and under a more humane system, it is probable that the load would be increased by keeping children and elderly people out of the fields and factories. It becomes imperative that all available persons join in the service of producing wealth. But the problem of idleness is not primarily a problem of shirkers. After all, the idle rich and the vagrants do not constitute a very imposing numerical total, say 300,000 at the outside. No, the idleness factor of waste springs primarily from the failure of the present system to provide opportunities for those who genuinely desire to work. It is not a question of shirking, it is a question of closed doors and barred fields. On any given day, from 4 to 8 million of the 42 million potential producers are idle. This means 4 to 8 million man-days wasted. Who are these idle people? First, there are the unemployed, 2 million in the best of years, 5 to 6 million in such years as 1921. Secondly, there are the strikers and locked-out workers. No allowable censure can attach to them personally, but the naked fact remains that untold millions of man-days are lost to society from these sources. Thirdly, there are the 3 million workers who, on any given day, are sick or incapacitated. It has been estimated that from 1/3 to 1/2 of this sickness is preventable. The fraction, not the total, clearly falls under the head of waste. Fourthly, there are the voluntary loafers and the idle rich, the only genuine shirkers. Adding these items up, we see that in the best of years, 4 million, or about 10% of the total working force, is always idle, and that in panic years like 1921, at least 8 million, or nearly 20% is idle. End of section 14.